Hey everyone, it's Leigh again with Arts Council OKC Creative Aging Program. And today we're going to change it up a little bit and we're going to go back to some acrylic and we're going to do some grayscale owls, some black and white acrylic owls, similar to the flowers we did, but obviously owls. And so the materials you're going to need today are black and white acrylic paint, acrylic paper, or you can do a mixed media paper, and various sizes of paintbrushes, a paint palette, and that can be a paper palette, it can be a paper plate, whatever you've got is great. And then painter's tape or masking tape, and that's optional. So all right, let's get started. And what I did today is I went ahead so that you guys don't have to watch me tape it down, since you know how that works. So I am going to kind of get a little adjusted here because I've got a bunch of stuff in my area. Ooh, hello. Okay, thank you for your patience. And what I've done, and you can certainly use whatever kind of owl you want. I just did a little horned owl, and then I'm going to do like a little burrowing owl. What I find is helpful is you can go online and just look at black and white photographs of owls, because that way you have a nice high contrast. And I wasn't thinking about not having a whole lot of space here, so I'm just going to move that guy here. And I'll try to stay out of the way, but here we go. So what I did is I just tape this down, so then once you pick it up, when you're done with your painting, then you have a nice white border, and it kind of gives it a nice finished look. Now you certainly don't have to do that. And just for ease of use, I taped it down to a board so I can move it around if I need to. But no big deal. And however you want to do it, I know I taped it to the table last time. So basically, I just put some black paint and some white paint on my palette. And now what we're going to do is we're just going to fill in the background. I'm going to see if I can move this over here. And I've just got a little printout of my little owl. So I'm going to move this so I don't accidentally. And I have a little bit of water, but this is not really for blending. This is just to kind of, if your brushes get dried out a little bit, you don't want to use a whole lot of water, otherwise it will water down your acrylics and it won't look as nice. Okay, so, and then you have a lot of options. You can do, a light gray background, a black background, a mixture. I kind of like to do a mixture, but the main thing is you want to cover, for your background, you want to cover your entire paper with paint, so whatever that looks like. Now, and remember that whenever you are, my brush, I washed it out, so there's a lot of water in it. Whenever you're painting, you want to make sure you kind of, when you're blending your colors, the thicker your paint is, the longer it's going to take to dry. So if you're going to come across this, come back on top of it pretty soon after, with, where we're drawing the owl and paint on top, then it will blend a whole lot if your paint is really thick. Okay, and then what I like to do is around the tape edges, I pull the edge close, I go across the tape and bring it down to the paper. That way I'm not shoving it accidentally up underneath the tape. And you can do whatever, and you can keep you do directional lines, you can do little short lines, just whatever you want. But I personally kind of like a mixture of black and white and gray. So, I just kind of like to show you from beginning to end, but I know you guys know how to do this, so. Yeah, and you're going to be painting over this multiple times, so this is just really just to get the background in here and covering up the paper so you have a layer of paint underneath. And you're going to want to use, a larger brush. It doesn't have to be giant, but a bigger brush so you're not wearing yourself out doing the background right away. So, anyway. Okay. And just listen to your body and make sure, take You know, this is not a race. You guys can take your time. I'm just trying to do this a little more quickly so that you don't, you know, have to sit here and watch me do this forever. So yeah, I'm just kind of fill it in and overlap it a little bit, and then this time, you know, I'm coming back up. So, and then if you want, you can pull it across, but I like to just kind of like to do this with the tape so that it tries not, you know, you try not to get it underneath the tape. You know, sometimes it happens and it's fine. All right. Woo. And then you can kind of feel if your brush is kind of getting tacky. So, okay. And if so, then you can just get a little bit of water on your brush, just a little bit. And then I like to blot it on a paper towel so that you're not bringing a whole lot of water into your paint. And you can, so then once you kind of have your base coat on here, then, well, and this is really kind of, you know, and you can have whatever kind of funky background you want. It doesn't matter. I personally like to have more than one color in it, so it's not just a flat color. I think it makes it look more interesting. Even if you're going to use a dark gray, you know, and you're blending your white and your black together, at least it's not just a solid black. Okay. Anyway, all right. I think we're good. All right, now, as we've done before, what you're going to do is you're going to take a smaller brush, and then we're going to just use this brush to kind of draw your owl. So, and I usually stand up when I do this, so it's going to, but the great thing about acrylic is you can paint over it, and now I kind of want to, I'm doing kind of a, I'm just going to get into the basics here. And yeah, so. And, you know, like I said, don't worry if it's not exact, because obviously this is not, but this just kind of gives me a place to start. And like I said, you know, you'll be painting over this a whole bunch, so. Okay. But this is just to kind of give you a place to kind of start from. So I'm just keep dipping back in, and you know, this doesn't look very pretty, and it won't for quite a while, so just embrace that this is a, you know, long process. As you all know, this, you know, the acrylic takes lots of layers of paint, so just embrace the time and just be patient and try to have a little fun. So I just want to kind of get in here and get a size, and you know, you're going to be going over this stuff a lot, so yeah, okay. And then if you need to, you can pick it up and look at it. Okay, well, I'll probably do that a little more later. So, anyway, a little owl here. Okay. And, you know, you can, the nice thing about just having a photograph that you can look at, you're just getting the basic shapes and the style and the, you know, the type of owl. You're totally going to make this your own, and you can, you know, just once you get started, then just kind of do your own thing. But what I like to do is just kind of rough in certain stuff, that like the eyes. And as you all know, this is a very kind of stylized owl. I'm just kind of doing it where things are suggested as far as the feathers and everything. But I think it's important to kind of use your brushes in different ways to where you can help them be the shape. So let's see what we're going to do. It's now, and plus you want to kind of work while your paint is a little wet, because that also helps with the process. So what I'm doing is I'm going to kind of go in here and just lay down some paint and kind of do it in the directional, you know. And then you just kind of keep dipping back in your paint a lot. And then you're going to, and this is just to get some base coat and layer of, and then you're just going to do a little bit in here. But part of what makes this nice is when you're blending your colors as you go, you know. So it's going to look really odd and not even like a recognizable owl for a long time, and that's okay. Just keep going. But then just use your brush, you know, as your nice shape tool. So, and you can just kind of just experiment with pushing and pulling it how you like it. And see, you know, you're getting some interesting texture just by going over the paint, and it blends as you go. And then if it keeps in, but then as you know, if you keep blending it, it's gonna all then turn to gray. And the ultimate goal is to have some nice contrast. So, but we're just kind of getting in this under painting here. Okay. I like to do it like that and then just come back and then start adding more. And, you know, that's a lovely thing of acrylics is you can paint over it if there are certain things you don't like. Okay, so and you just keep going. And we've done a lot of different kinds of dotting, so you can certainly do that. You know, because this helps you, instead of painting individual little feathers, this gives you the illusion. So we're just kind of getting a little this underneath, and then you're going to go over with other layers on top. So you're going to have, so just keep going. Whoop. And then it's okay if you get a little too much, no problem. Then you just dip some in the white and keep going. And like I said, you're going to be going over this quite a few times, but it's nice to have a kind of texture going underneath. And then just be aware, you know, the thicker the paint is, the lumpier it will be, which is that's totally great if that's what you're going for. And then so we're just going to fill in the owl this way. So I just kind of want to get a base layer here. And now if you think, oh, this it's taking forever, this brush is really small, then get a larger brush. You know, and then just see what that looks like. You may like it, you might not. So I personally like middle of the road, but definitely for the background, it's nice to have a bigger one. But then just put it in there and look. And it might be overpowering, and then you can go, oh, at least I tried it, never mind. But then it also kind of blends things in a nice big thick way, so you can kind of mix some things on top and then change it up. So, and just experiment with your brush. Use the edges of it because it has a nice little effect there, and just keep going. And now the owl is kind of blends into the background right now, but you're going to keep adding to it so it'll pop back out. And then if you still think it blends too much, then you can change the background. So don't worry about that. And then just kind of keep going. But still be aware, you know, when you're putting down your brush, that you can still do directional, you know, so if you're, like how the wing is here, and just going with the shape of your owl's body. Because by doing the curves, it gives them a more of a three-dimensional look than just if I were to do it straight. It would flatten it out visually, and that's totally fine if that's what you're wanting to do. You see, you just keep going, and then we'll come back in, and what you can do for yourself is kind of come back and put a nice line where your wing is, just to kind of keep you aware of where it is, so that you can come back and bring it out some more later. So you guys have this. Grayscale is really pretty fun because you're not going to make any bad colors because you're doing black, white, and gray. Now you can make a lot of gray, so that's why you just want to let it rest and dry a little bit, or just, you know, acrylic dries really pretty quickly, so if you're moving on to a different part of your image while something else is drying, then that usually works really pretty well. Okay. And then I'm just going to come in here and just kind of experiment. I know you guys probably are tired of me saying that, but just really. Yep. And what it's like by pushing it away or pulling it towards you. So now remember, embrace the weirdness of it, because he's going to look strange for a while. Alright, so you can see that I have added some stuff and he still looks really kind of strange, which this is, as you know, is part of the process. But I just have been layering up, you know, more paint and just kind of feathering things out, and, you know, just adding more layers of paint. And then I've also had to let it sit and dry just a little bit because, you know, you can make a whole lot of gray. So I'm just going to keep going around and adding, you know, adding more layers, and then just pay attention to, you know, well, I'll come back in here and add some more whites, just so we're going to kind of break some of this up. Now, you know, and as you know, this stuff comes together a lot towards the end, but then I'm just kind of adding some things. And if you're thinking about one thing, then just move on to something else while you're figuring out what you want to do. And so it looks a little funny, but that's okay. You know, this acrylics take a lot of layers. You know, people think, oh, it's really simple, you can just do it really quick. It's not hard, but it takes a lot of layers of doing. And let's see, deciding if I need to add a little more white in here. And then, like I said, just take your time, because when you start rushing, that's when everything starts turning to gray. And the good thing, though, as you know, you can go over it again, but just kind of be thoughtful about it and take your time, so that you're not going over it and over it and over it and over it, unless you really want to, because sometimes that's really what you're going for. But work smarter, not harder, as they say. So I'm just kind of, now I'm using the edge of this brush, and I'm coming in up to the black here because it's not a solid hard line. And if you go too much, no, don't worry about it. You can go back over. But see, that's why sometimes pulling away is nice. And then I'm just going to keep adding here. Oop. And then, you know, the owl kind of blends into the background, but you can come in and fix that too. But the main thing was just kind of getting in a background so that the owl was sitting on something. So like I said, you're just gonna do lots of layers. So and my owl looks a little angry, but that's okay. You can change the arc if you want to. And then he has a little bit of black in here, so we're just gonna so that kind of changed his look. He doesn't look as owly. Well, he does, but it's different. So then you can go back in and add some more white, which will be more gray right now, but that's okay. You can kind of get the idea. And then we're going to add a little more. And then I'm going to come back in and add some black in this one here, and I'm just still using the edge of my brush. I'm just going to bring it down here. And you'll find you're probably more comfortable with some things on one side versus the other, and that's totally normal. So we're going to come in here. And then, you know, once you're looking at an image, that's great, but then get to the point where then you're just kind of making it your own owl. You don't have to make it look exactly like the picture you're working on. Okay, and then if your brush gets pretty dry, then just dip it a little bit in water, but then don't get it too wet. So, yeah. And then we're just going to kind of come back in here and add some more white. Oops. And then you might find that you have too much black on your brush if you're wanting to use this particular one, and then you really need to kind of clean it on your paper towel. Yeah, it's not as nice as watercolors, and you want to change colors really quick. That's okay. You can always get a new brush. So, all right. And so I'm going to do. Okay. And I'm just going to come in here. And then you can just use like little dotting, so it just kind of tones down that harsh line. Okay, now I'm going to think still. And then what we can do while we're letting some of this stuff kind of dry, so we're not continuing to make gray, lots of gray, and then I'm going to add some dark stuff in the back, you know, add some more black. And then this is also where you can kind of change the edge of your owl if you want. And then you can also kind of come in and do little, this happens to have quite a bit. I washed my brushes so it has more water than I intended, but that's okay. And then so you're going to kind of bring out the edges of your owl again, because you don't want him to totally blend into the background. You want to have some nice contrast. So, and then you can kind of come in and add some other like little details with your smaller brush, but then also just be aware too how much paint you're getting on there. So you can just already see that he's coming out of the background more. And then And you can always use a hair dryer if you want to kind of get your paint to dry faster. I think the acrylic dries really pretty quickly, so if you're doing it in thinner layers, it should, you know, if you're addressing something else for a little bit, and while you're waiting for something else to dry, it usually doesn't take too long. Unless you just really, you know, layered on the heavy paint, so. So we can kind of see, I'm just gonna, okay, and this kind of is a big brush for this, but I want to go in here and kind of change a little bit of the edge of this part of this wing, so. So you all can totally do this. It's just a slow process, as you all know by now. And from my broken recordness, so. Okay, and then, well, it's still wet. If you want to, you can, you know, add some, let's see. And then while it's still kind of wet, then you can add some other texture. And then if it's really wet and you're dragging more than you really want, that's fine, you can let it sit a little bit. But here again, you get the idea. And this is slow, so it's just lots and lots and lots of layers, because you can tell that I'm going to need to come back in and have more contrast, and I'll come in and work on his eyes here while this other stuff is drying. And you know, this is just dotting it, so obviously this isn't really, you know, wing shape, or not wing shape, but feathers. But if you really want to, you can go in with a smaller brush, and you can go in and go around some of your lighter ones if you really want to, and give it kind of more of a rounded shape. No, you certainly don't have to, but that's just something you can do. Because there's all sorts of ways to go about it, and then you can kind of. And if you don't like the look of it, then just keep doing what you're doing. But you can see how some of these kind of got a little bit wet, so. And I'm not sure if I like that or not. I think I got a little too much black. But you get the idea. And let's see. I'll come back and adjust some of that stuff. Alright, so. So I'm just going to kind of start doing a little bit darker around here. Okay. I always kind of like to kind of give myself an idea of where I want to be. And then hopefully you all have already covered yourselves up, so, because acrylic, you know, once it dries, it's on there, so. Because I happen to end up getting stuff all over myself, so. Okay. Alright, so I've been working on this, and as you know, it just takes a lot of time, and I'm just kind of going back in and kind of trying to finesse a few things, and just kind of working at it, because this is different, you know, than when we were doing the flowers. This is like lots of little lines or bigger lines instead of long big swaths of stuff. So, but I know that you guys will do well, and it's just about just kind of slowing down and keep adding to it. Or if you find that everything is getting kind of looking all the same, lots of grays, then take a minute and let it dry, and then come back and kind of add some, you know, and you can just kind of take it slow, and then, like I said, you can come back. This kind of process is going to take a lot of, it's going to look really weird for a while, then it's going to kind of look good, and then it's going to look really crazy for a while, and then you're going to get to a point where you're like, oh, okay, I really like that, and then you'll stop, because it's easy to overwork. So just, and you know, grayscale is kind of tricky because you can make it look really gray all over easily. So, and just experiment with using different sizes of brushes and different, you know, ways of doing it. So, and remember, this is all practice. This is all about learning new ways of doing things or experimenting. And I'll probably continue to work a little bit more. But you can see, and then I'll go ahead and take this off because I can still work on him later. But you then just be careful. And when I put on the blue tape, I don't know if I said, just when you're putting it on, press just on the outer, you know, on this edge. You know, you don't want to really press a whole lot all over the whole tape, because sometimes you can accidentally pull a little bit off of the paper off. But typically it won't be too bad. But just, and you know, you may have the little areas where the paint got under your tape a little bit, and that's okay. It'll still be fine. It'll still look cool. But you can see how then even still the white border kind of gives it a really nice finished look, even if it is a little bit wonky. But, and then you can continue, and sometimes just kind of let it sit and come back, and you can add like the little final details. But you've got it. I know you can do this, and I look forward to seeing them when we get back. And take good care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time.